Hi guys, Chris here with Super Savvy Travelers. Today I wanted to go over some of the things that are so different about buying a property in Italy. You've got basically in California, for example, and yes, I'm a licensed real estate agent in California, and bought and sold several houses, flipped houses, done a lot of that kind of stuff. But in California, you sit down at the title company, right? Everything's in escrow. You sit down at the title company and you sign 1,000,000 pages that talk about disclosing this and disclosing that and this and that and this and that and this and that. And you just keep signing and your arm hurts and you keep signing. And then you come out of there with a phone book of things you signed and your head is in a whirl. But now you own the property. So that is very different. Specifically in Italy, there's not a lot of disclosures that need to happen. There are attestations, the seller's attesting that there's no mortgages, there's no this, that kind of stuff. But the deeds that you sign in Italy generally are just a few pages long. And one or two of those pages are the floor plans. So the deed signing in Italy is super quick. What happens is you go in and you sit down with the notaio, who is the person that is, works for himself, but he is beholden to the state there to make sure that everything, all of the contracts are in accordance with Italian real estate law. So he's got a big job. Please like this video and subscribe to the channel. Also, take our course. We have a course that goes over everything you need to know about buying a property in Italy, moving to Italy, moving your pets to Italy, everything is in that course, details below. And follow me on Instagram at Chris Sobolev. So the actual deed itself is only like 4 pages long for the ones that we've had. Generally, it starts with, your name and who the parties are, okay? Identifies the parties. And then it goes over what the property is, the legal description of the property. Quick note, don't worry if your address on the property doesn't match the address in the legal description, because addresses change. These houses are like 400, 500, 600 years old. The numbers have changed over the years. What's important is the legal description of the property, and that will be in the act. Now, another thing that's very important, beyond that, you have all the clauses, which you can go over with your attorney or with whoever's helping you on that. But the important thing are the floor plans. Now, when you go in and you sit down in the notaio's office, he's going to give you the floor plans, and you're going to look at them and you go, and he's asking you, are these correct? And a lot of people just go, yeah, well, at first we didn't know, so we did that. Yeah, well, of course it's correct. It looks good to me. Problem is that if something is missing on the floor plans, you don't get it. Like if that terrace that you were promised is missing on the floor plans, it's not your terrace. You're agreeing that everything in the floor plans that are attached to the deed as, Appendix A or whatever, are correct. And if they're not correct, it's on you because you've signed that they are. That's important. So basically what happens is you start out, kind of like you start out in the United States. There's no multiple listing service, however. All of the agents and brokers have their own inventory. So if you want this house, you have to go to this broker. If you want this house, you have to go to this broker. There are no seller's agents unless you hire one specifically to represent you, which is not a bad deal. And you come up with some sort of fee structure for them to represent you and take you through the whole process. In which case, they can go with you to all of these places. They can make the appointments with the other brokers and agents. And it might be a good thing to do, but it's going to cost you extra. Now, when you buy a house in Italy, you pay half of the commission. You pay 3% of the market value of the property, sometimes 4%, but it's negotiable. You can negotiate it down to, whatever they'll negotiate it to, but I wouldn't go higher than 3 myself. So, so you're going to be on the hook for 3% of that. You're going to be on the hook for, obviously, the price of the property. You're going to be on the hook for transfer taxes, which I go over in the course in great detail. So you know exactly what you have to deal with, the costs and everything like that. You go in and you make the offer with either a compromesso or an offer letter. Again, in my course, I go into those very, very detailed. We prefer the compromesso because it doesn't tie you up for a specific period of time. However, in either of those documents, it would be very good to put in a due date, like the seller's get 3 days to make his decision, otherwise you're off of somewhere else. So that happens, and then you pay the seller directly. So you send him like a wire transfer. He gets the deposit, 10% of the purchase price generally. That's also negotiable. And then he takes the deposit and he gets what's called the scheda catastale, which is the new floor plans. He gets them made up or redone or whatever. And he also gets the APE, which is the energy statement. Those are the two things a seller needs to have in order to sell you the property. The scheda catastale has to show the exact property the way it is. Again, we talked about the floor plan. So that's what they're going to probably use the deposit to pay for. It's about $1,200, I think, for that, and $250, $300 for the APE. Okay. Now, in an earlier video, I talked to you about the certificate of habitability. I'm going to put a link in the details below. Please go watch that video. It's very important that you bring that up. So you make your offer, you pay the deposit. Many times in the compromiso and the offer letter, it's indicated that the contract is not valid until that deposit is received. That's very, very important. And don't forget to put in that due date, meaning they have 3 days, 5 days. Many times the agent will try to put in 30 days. That's completely unacceptable. That means you're stuck for 30 days just waiting to see if they're going to accept your offer, and you can't go look at anything else or make another offer. So that's something you don't want. So yeah, so you do all of that. Then you, when everything's all done, you can go in. There's no inspections required. There's no mortgage insurance, anything like that. I like to get inspections. I always get an architect or a geometra or an engineer to do a basic inspection. However, your certificate of habitability should cover a lot of that. Nonetheless, it's good to double check because it's really not that expensive to get somebody to go through the house and really look at it with a fine-tooth comb. So then you go to the notaio's office. If you don't speak Italian, you will need an interpreter. Make sure they're interpreting every clause of the deed. Like so many interpreters I've seen, they go in and what happens is the notaio will read the entire deed, blah, 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 blah. And there's some clauses in there that are extremely important. Number one, the fraud clause. I've seen people go, okay, we're gonna sell you the house for $100,000. On the deed, we're gonna put $70,000. And you're going to pay us the extra after that, just directly to us. Don't do that. First of all, it's illegal. The penalties are severe. Secondly, if you go to turn around and sell that place, you're going to have capital gains tax on that. So don't ever do that. Don't fall for it. It's not done a lot, even though people will tell you that it is. It's actually quite illegal and something you really want to avoid. So it's very important that your interpreter actually goes through all of the clauses. What I used to do when I was interpreting for our clients is I would get the act in advance. I'd get a draft from the notaio's office. I would get it, I would translate it, and we'd go over, what does that mean to you? What is that actually saying? You need to know because you're signing it. So I would do that, and your interpreter, if they're good, will understand that and will do that for you. So then you go in and the notaio reads off everything, shows you the floor plans, make sure he's got your codice fiscale, which reminds me, if you don't have a codice fiscale, you need to get one before you do anything. That's something you can get at Studio Legale Meta. You can get them online, or you can go to the Agenzia delle Entrate in Italy, but make sure you make your appointment at least 3 weeks in advance. There you go. Yeah, and then you get the keys. Oh, another good thing to put in the deed is that you will take possession immediately upon the signing of the act. Now, the seller doesn't get their money for another 3 weeks because the notaio has to do his checks and then he disperses the payment, pays the taxes. Doesn't matter. You get the keys. Another thing I would put in the compromesso is that the seller has to clear out all their stuff. So many times people will go into a house that they've just bought and it's full of garbage, and it costs. It costs money. It takes time to get it all cleared out. Make sure unless you're agreeing to accept it as is with all the furniture and everything else, get them to clear it out and dump everything. Otherwise, it's going to be your problem. And do a walkthrough before the act. You can always reschedule the act if that's not done, and I would. That's a very good thing. Another thing another reason you need to take the course, because as I'm going through, I'm thinking of all these things and you really need to know, is that things like kitchens are considered furniture. Light fixtures are not fixtures in the California sense. They can go with whoever sells you the house. They can take their fixtures, they can take their stoves, even if that's the only heating, they can take that. They can take anything that is not actually a wall or a window or whatever. So understand that as well. Make sure all of that stuff is listed in the compromesso with photos. And one more thing is ask the seller for the electric bill because it makes it a whole lot easier when you're changing over the electrics. They have all the numbers on it and everything else, and it's kind of an expected thing that you ask them for that, because otherwise it can be a little bit of a hassle to get the electrics changed over. So I hope that helps you guys. I hope I didn't throw too much stuff at you, but again, take the course, it's all in order. And I'm going to be doing some more videos on this kind of stuff because a lot of people really need to know, and it's very different. And I know when I started out, I had no idea how different it was. So there you go, guys. See you soon.